Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm sorry for being late. I had some things that I had to do before I could get started. I'm a little bit behind schedule, so I hope you all can bear with me. I plan to do several hangouts tonight. Like I'm going to do 3 hangouts back to back. And I want to be as efficient as possible. Hopefully people will be able to join at some point. I may be able to open it up. I'm probably going to open it up probably on the last one, the one dealing with Michael B. Jordan. Hopefully people can join that. Yeah, I see that somebody said that they're waiting on that green screen. Yeah, I'm going to hook that up. It's probably going to be maybe this weekend that I'll do it. I'll test it out. Thanks, Elaine, for tuning in. Sorry again that I'm late, a little bit behind schedule. You know, I get home, I got to cook food and everything, and look over these stories real quick to make sure that, that I have all the facts together before I get started. So I hope y'all can bear with me. I'm about to get started with this first hangout, and this hangout is going to focus on Donald Trump. There are several things that I want to talk about with respect to Donald Trump. And then I'm going to move on to a hangout about Umar Johnson, a brief hangout about the situation and a couple of responses that I heard. I want to talk about those. Also, I want to talk about the Michael B. Jordan situation and people talking about boycotting the film Black Panther. I want to share my thoughts about that, and I want to hear from you all as well. All right, so for this first session, I'm going to focus on several things involving Donald Trump. The first thing that I want to focus on is an article that I came across, and I'll have links to all these articles in the description box for those of you who haven't read them, in case you're interested in reading them. There's an article in the New Yorker that talks about how Donald Trump didn't expect to win the election. How Donald Trump and his family and even the people on his campaign, they didn't expect for him to win the campaign. They didn't expect for him to actually win the election. Donald Trump saw it as an opportunity basically to expand his brand, to bring more attention to his brand, to become more famous, to basically bring in more money and revenue for his various enterprises just by running for the White House. He thought that it would make him the most famous man in the world, according to this article. There were rumors of a Donald Trump network coming together. He saw this as a chance for his brand to be more powerful. He saw it as an opportunity for untold things like that. And on election day, this article talks about how Donald Trump evolved from being somebody who disbelieved in, first he started off like assuming that he wouldn't win. And then as the results started to come in and it looked like there was a possibility of him winning, he became in a state of disbelief. He couldn't believe that he was going to win. And then after that, when it became clear that he was going to win, this man was actually horrified at the prospect of being president of the United States. He was afraid. Basically, he was afraid. And then eventually, like after he won, Donald Trump, according to this article in the New Yorker, began to become a person who believed that he deserved to be the president. And I think this article reveals several things that are important for people to understand. The first thing is Donald Trump knew that he was not qualified to be president of the United States. He knew that he was unfit to serve as president. I mean, with all that stuff that came out about this man during the campaign, the whole grab him by the vagina thing that came out from Access Hollywood, and then all these constant blunders that this man made. This man knew that he wasn't fit to serve. I mean, it is just amazing. I mean, his performances during the debates with Hillary Clinton weren't the best. He knew that he didn't deserve to be president, but his supporters still voted for him. That just tells you how uninformed his supporters are, how ignorant they are, how stupid they are, and just how bigoted and closed-minded they are. Manipulated these fools in order to vote for him. I mean, here you have a man that doesn't even believe that he has any chance of winning. But these idiots that followed his campaign and supported him made it possible for this buffoon to become the president. So that's one thing that I want to talk about. Now, before I move on to the next points dealing with Donald Trump, I want to look through your comments. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. Shout out to Psychopatheus. Shout out to Ali Emmett. Shout out to Shaq B. Just shout out to everybody that's here. So let me go through your comments before I move on to the next segment dealing with Donald Trump. Shaq B said, I'm glad you got up and running. Yeah, I'm sorry, everybody, for those. I wanted to start at 9 o'clock. I probably should have set it for 10 o'clock. Once you get home, you got to do all this stuff. I was behind, had to cook dinner for me and my daughter, and then, try to go over these articles real quick to make sure I have all the information. So, yeah, that's why I'm behind. Okay, and Elaine Lloyd said that she didn't know that I have a PayPal. Yes, I have a PayPal. If you go to my channel page, like the main page, you'll see that there are links. I think if you go to the About section, you'll see that there are links there. One link says donation so that people can make donations to this channel. And also people can support this channel during the live chat. I have super chat on my channel so people can make donations while the chat is going on. And the donations go in part to improving the quality of this channel. As I get donations, I'll purchase more equipment. As I pointed out in my last video, I purchased a green screen. I want to purchase more software so that I can improve the quality of the channel. One thing that I'm looking into getting are cameras, more cameras so I can do more videos out in the field or other videos that aren't stationary, like when I'm sitting at the computer or in front of my phone, and microphones and things like that for interviewing people when I'm outside, that they can plug, connect to themselves and all that kind of stuff. So there's a wide range of equipment that I want to use to improve the quality of this channel. So that's part of, what the funds go to. Also, as many people know, here on YouTube, they have been taken away from monetization. They have demonetized a lot of channels. So we no longer receive any kind of, it's hard to receive revenue, just put it that way. As soon as I post a video, for the most part, it is like even that promotional video that I did. When I posted that video, even though I'm not talking about anything controversial, once I posted that video, it was monetized for a second. Then within 5 minutes, it was demonetized. And I had to select, for YouTube to do a manual review of it to determine whether or not it's advertiser friendly. So YouTube has really been completely taken away from people's opportunity to make money here on YouTube. So your donations are truly appreciated. A token of support is, appreciated. We spend like $5 on a lot of things. I mean, a $5 donation helps, it helps motivate, I would do this regardless of if I receive donations or not. That's not my motivation, but it helps to receive donations. So yeah, for those, again, I do have a PayPal connected to my account. Yeah, and it's no pressure. People feel inclined to donate, good, and I appreciate your support. But you could also support the channel in other ways by sharing my videos, liking my videos, and by, subscribing to my channel. All of that support I appreciate. So Elaine said, how do I send you money for one channel I want to support? You can click the donation link. You can donate that way, or you can click the $ icon during the live chat to make a donation at that point. And my other channels aren't set up to, The only other channel that I have that's monetized is my other I Declare War channel. Um, so I have 4 channels. I actually have 5 channels. I have 2 New Possibilities channels. I'm going to include links in the description box to those channels. And I have 2 I Declare War channels, and then I have my art channel. The only ones that are monetized are my main, this channel right here, and my main I Declare War channel. Oh, so Psychopatheus said he thought I was going to cancel. And he said that he pushed his show until 11 p.m. so that he could catch this. Cool. I appreciate it, man. I support your channel, and I'm glad you made an effort to tune into this. And I'll be over there as soon as I'm finished wrapping up these quick hangouts that I have planned for tonight. Shaq B talked about how estimated the naivete and desperation of Americans. And that's true. Like, a lot of people thought that because we had this election of Barack Obama, the first African American president, you saw, you see a large Latino population, you see women are more influential in the election process. You have all these groups that have interests that are contrary to Donald Trump's interests. And based on these changing demographics, many people thought that the days of Donald Trump becoming president were long gone. But we were reminded of what kind of country we in fact live in. We were reminded of how bigoted a lot of people are in this country, how narrow-minded a lot of people are, how racist a lot of people are. I mean, we understand that Trump ran on racism. He pandered to racists. He pandered to white supremacists. He pandered to neo-Nazis. With all this anti-immigrant rhetoric, with all this anti-Muslim rhetoric, with, in fact, anti-black rhetoric, talking about how he supports racial profiling. How he supports police brutality. He actually encouraged his crowds to commit acts of violence against black protesters at his rallies. So, yeah, I mean, we did underestimate the American people and their ignorance. A lot of our, the people in America are ignorant and racist and bigoted and prejudiced. And we underestimated that. We underestimated America's history. Because if we knew America's history, like if we were conscious of it and aware of it, we would have reflected on what happened after Reconstruction, where you had all these elected officials after black people gained some kind of level of, some kind of token of freedom. To some small measure, black people were able to elect people to Congress for the first time. And right after Reconstruction, you had the rise of the KKK, you had terrorism, you had the complete dismantling of the tiny little steps that black people were making towards freedom. I mean, if we reflect on that history, we shouldn't be surprised at what happened with the election of Donald Trump. Nobody expected him. I mean, you're right, Elaine. Nobody expected this man to win. I mean, all the pundits said he didn't have a chance of winning. I did videos talking about how it was unlikely for him to win. There were only a few people that predicted that he would win. One of those people was Michael Moore, the filmmaker who did Fahrenheit 9/11 and other great documentaries. Another person was this YouTuber, what's that brother's name? Afro Synergy. Yeah, he also predicted it. And rightfully, they were right, unfortunately. But yeah, most people didn't think that Donald Trump had a snowball's chance in hell of being elected. And it's just something else, man. And nobody really knew, like Psychopathia said, people underestimated the power of social media. And yeah, I mean, that's a great point, because like the role that the Russians played in this election, how they manipulated social media. And we know like how these hate groups and stuff like that are using social media to get their message out there. We shouldn't be surprised that Donald Trump was elected. Shaq B said, I knew there was a chance he would win or he could win. Oh, man, hold on one second. Psycho said that social media got him elected the same way it got Obama elected. Shaq B said that social media is super powerful when you have uneducated, emotional voters. Exactly. Because people aren't reading up on the issues. They're not getting their information from direct sources. Instead, they're relying on propaganda that's put out here in social media. I mean, we know that President Trump, one of the main things he uses is Twitter to relay his messages, to get his message out there. So he knows his audience. You know, they are more inclined to read a tweet than they are to read some article in the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Nation or the Atlantic Reporter or any you know, reliable news source. You know, they're more inclined to go to quick social media like Twitter, where you only have a certain number of characters. You know, just like people are more inclined to watch a YouTube video than they are to pick up a book and do their own research. People are intellectually lazy. And, you know, those types of people that are intellectually lazy, overly emotional, they are easily manipulated by people like Donald Trump. Shout out to Covina, man. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I got started late, so you didn't miss much. I haven't been on that long. And Emo Jones said that in a democracy, people get the leaders they deserve. Yeah, anytime you vote for somebody like this, you're gonna get what you deserve. And people are finding out every day like how much of a disaster this man is. How much of a complete disaster he is. Okay, if you 1 second, Joe. I'm just looking through the comments. Yeah, Psycho. Yeah, that's my experience, man, with this demonetization thing, man. As soon as you put a video up, it's automatically demonetized. You don't even have to put up, like for my channel, like even if I don't have any tags on it or any objectionable type of title, it'll still be marked as advertiser friendly. And people just don't know like how much of an impact that has, because like time is invested doing these videos. Excuse me, time is invested doing these videos. You read up on the subject. And again, although I would do it for free, I mean, it helps to get some kind of compensation. And YouTube has just like really cut that back substantially. And all that goes back to the whole thing of censorship, man. You know, there was a time when I thought that like certain voices should be censored and stuff like that. They should have their channels taken down and all that kind of stuff. But on reflection, I don't think that that's the best way to deal with objectionable speech. You know, I think the way you deal with it is by offering an alternative message and by challenging and debating against those voices. Because this censorship thing is hurting everybody. because people ran to these advertisers and they complained. Now, a lot of advertisers pulled out of YouTube, and now, as a result, like, people across all political spectrums are being adversely affected because of this policy. Okay, and I see somebody is saying that Latino is not a race, but yeah, I mean, most people know that it's a culture. It's a ethnic group, and there are different people of different races that are classified as Latino, but we know, like, this anti-Latino sentiment is about race because they don't want to see the browning of America. And that's why, this is just another component of racism. You will see these right-wing groups in, Europe and stuff like that. One of the biggest issues that they push against is against immigration. And the same is true for the racists and white supremacists here, because they want to keep America white. They want to keep Europe white. Yeah, it may be too late by the time people realize the damage that Trump has done. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and that was this voter fraud commission that Donald Trump has set up. He set up this commission. He claimed that millions of people voted illegally during the past election, and he claims that that is the reason why he lost the popular vote. And that was one of the reasons why he set up this commission. And the commission is called the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. They say that it was designed to ensure that there was integrity in these elections, to make sure that there was no voter fraud and all that kind of stuff. That's their claim. But when you cut it down to its essence, basically what you had was an effort to suppress so-called minority voters, meaning Black voters and Latino voters and other groups of people who tend to vote for Democrats. Commission designed to disenfranchise people, to suppress the vote. And, they set up this commission despite all this evidence that that voter fraud is not a major problem in the United States. In-person voter fraud is extremely rare. But despite that, you had this man set up this fake voter fraud commission. This commission did not prove at all that there was fraud in the election. It didn't prove that 3 to 5 million people illegally voted. It was a sham. And Donald Trump decided to dissolve this commission after getting pushback from states, because Donald Trump wanted these states to provide all this information about people who voted in the election, all this confidential information. And many of those states, many of them Democratic states or whatever, decided that they were going to push back against the president's demand. And the president saw that he would be in for a legal fight if he decided to push forward with it. You had all these states that said, we're not going to give you this information. And you have these civil rights groups that have actually filed suits against this president. And some of them are pursuing those suits, even though this man voted to dissolve this commission. Because, they're seeking information about why this commission was set up, like what kind of information are they seeking, and they wanted to find out like what the motivations were behind this commission. So the litigation continues despite Donald Trump trying to dissolve this thing. But this is just a reminder of how important elections are. I mean, you have an administration that is trying to roll back the clock of progress when it comes to voting rights, trying to restrict our right to vote, trying to limit who votes and how they vote and all that kind of stuff, making it more difficult for Black people to vote. And this comes after the U.S. Supreme Court issued that Shelby County versus Holder case, where that decision in that case where they basically gutted the Voting Rights Act, you know, taking away Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, which is the formula that's used to decide which states are subject to pre-clearance. And pre-clearance, for those of you who don't know, that's a system that was set up that required jurisdictions that had a history of discriminating against black voters. It required those jurisdictions to pre-clear any kind of voting law changes that they were to try to implement. So if they were trying to make any kind of changes, they had to pre-clear those changes through the Justice Department and through federal courts. And the reason why that is so important is because it was preemptive. It prevented those jurisdictions from implementing discriminatory voting laws and regulations before, even be put into order or put into practice. They were stopped from doing so. So it saved the expense of litigation and all that kind of stuff. It was a way to protect African American voters, Latino voters, and other so-called minorities and marginalized groups from voter discrimination. So now that's not even in place, and you have this Trump administration trying to strip away our voting rights. And the fact that they will go through those measures to take away voting rights is just another reminder of how important voting rights are and how important it is for each and every one of us to vote. So that's one point that I have to talk about, and I'm glad that this commission has been dissolved. This is a victory for civil rights. This is a victory for civil rights organizations, for African Americans and Latinos. Victory. The Trump administration has made it clear that they plan on continuing to look into this issue, and they plan to continue their effort to try to suppress black voters. But this is a victory that should not be underestimated. So before I move into the next section on this Donald Trump matter, I want to look at your comments, and then I'll proceed. Now, somebody said that black women started going after advertisers to shut down channels. They're ruining YouTube as they ruined MySpace. Now, I don't know about black women ruining MySpace, and I know that some black women did complain to advertisers, and I understand why they did so, because you have these people on here who are misogynistic, who have made an industry out of bashing black women, who have made an industry out of degrading and humiliating black women. While at the same time, these people that degrade the black woman, they also celebrate and elevate white women and other non-black women. So I understand the frustration and the anger that a lot of sisters have towards these people, and I understand them trying to do what they can to try to shut those people down. But again, I've stated my position. I think the best way to deal with those people is through counter messaging, through alternative messaging, by debating these people and attacking their ideas. Educate the public about how wrong those people are, and let the ideas battle it out in the marketplace of ideas. I think that's the best way to deal with it, because at the end of the day, censorship undermines all of us. And I understand that YouTube is not a public forum, and it's not governed by the First Amendment. This is a private forum, and YouTube has the right to regulate it as they see fit and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but at the end of the day, censorship has not helped anybody here. Those channels that bash black women are still up and running, and they will continue to be up and running. But now what has happened is everybody's AdSense dollars are undermined. Most people are getting demonetized. But as I said before, like, I encourage people to fight these demonetizations. Request a review every single time, and force them to review this stuff, because like I have done all these requests for reviews, and most of them come back as being advertiser friendly. So I encourage people to fight. Emo Jones, I'm gonna get to that Black Panther movie. That's gonna be That's gonna probably be my next hangout right after this one, and it's gonna be tonight. So I'm gonna just like knock these top topics out. Yeah, I see that Shaq B said Republicans have been doing voter suppression since the start of the KKK and redistricting. He said that if they believe they are right, why do they have to cheat? And the thing is, like with voter suppression, it started out with the Democrat, like the Democrats suppressed our votes as well. Like, I mean, a lot of those KKK people were early Democrats, not modern Democrats, but they suppressed our vote as well. So, I mean, this voter suppression issue in the modern times is primarily Republicans doing it. But we have to remember back in during the Jim Crow era, the people that were suppressing black votes for the most part were Democrats in the South. I mean, look at the history of Fannie Lou Hamer and, all the civil rights eras. And, at that time, many of those staunch segregationists were Democrats. Later on, they became Republicans and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, but in modern times, you're correct. It is, primarily the Republicans leading this effort to suppress black voters. Oh, and I see the Psycho said black women had nothing to do with the advertising problem. It was because of that PewDiePie, whatever that guy's name is. It's because of him, this popular YouTuber who did some anti-Semitic video against Jews and stuff like that. And because of that, advertising began to be affected. Peace to S. Wiseman. Peace to Dolly. Thanks for tuning in. And Shaq said, I didn't mean to let the Democrats off. They've been up to plenty of crap through the years. I'm not going to use the actual word. I'm trying to clean up my channel. I want my channel to be accessible so anybody could listen to it. Like, there's great channels on here that I like to listen to when I'm in the car, and sometimes the language is so foul, I can't listen to them with my daughter in the car. And I want to try to create content that can be heard, in a family setting or anywhere. So I'm trying to change it up a little bit. I'm still going to be hard hitting, but I'm going to try to like refrain from, the profanity and stuff like that. Shout out to Abdul Taha. Peace to you. Yeah, so I'm going to move on to the next segment, dealing with Donald Trump. The next thing deals with Steve Bannon. Now, Steve Bannon has made some controversial statements about Donald Trump Jr., that's Donald Trump's son. And he called Donald Trump Jr. this, he basically called him treasonous. And the reason why he did so is because Donald Trump Jr. met with Russians during the election to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. And this guy, Steve Bannon, also says that Donald Trump probably met with these Russians as well. This has come out recently. There's a book that's coming out. There's exposing the Trump administration, Donald Trump. And for those of you who don't know, Steve Bannon was the chief political advisor for Donald Trump. You know, he was recently let go not too long ago, but he was his chief political advisor. So he was like one of his main men in his circle of power and stuff. And this guy's coming out hard against Donald Trump in his book by, you know, talking about how his son is treasonous. And then he also suggested that Donald Trump probably met with these Russians on the same day. This man called Donald Trump's wife stupid, basically. He said that Ivanka Trump was dumb as a brick. That's how he described her. And Donald Trump, of course, Donald Trump lashed out. Donald Trump said, well, Steve Bannon had nothing to do with his victory. He said that when he fired Steve Bannon, not only did Steve Bannon lose his job, but he lost his mind. So that's Donald Trump's response. I mean, you would know that Donald Trump would have something insulting to say. I mean, he's not going to just sit back and allow Steve Bannon to go off on him like that. But even after that, after Donald Trump dissed him by saying that he lost his mind and all that kind of stuff, Steve Bannon still tried to suck up to him on a radio interview by saying that Donald Trump is a good man and he still supports Donald Trump. But this goes to show you, I mean, this whole situation just goes to show you how fake and phony these people are in politics, you know, how they don't really have any kind of real loyalty, you know, how they'll betray somebody in a second. And the thing is, Bannon is telling the truth when he describes Donald Trump Jr. as being treasonous. I mean, here you are meeting with one of the United States adversaries, Russia. You know, one of the United States competitors, one of the United States enemies and stuff like that. And you're meeting them to discuss election matters. You're basically working with them in an election to undermine, you know, the election and to basically undermine democracy. Because we have to remember, at this time, you had the Russians trying to sabotage the election by putting all this fake news into the social media to persuade people to vote for Donald Trump. You have Donald Trump, you know, the Russians leaking information from the DNC, you know, getting all these emails and stuff like that, leaking that information to the public and all that kind of stuff to make it easier for Donald Trump to win. So you have this foreign power intervening in the election, and then you have Donald Trump and his campaign basically collaborating with the enemy power in order to win an election. And all that makes you wonder, like, if Donald Trump is just a puppet of Russia. You know, that's what it leads one to wonder about. You know, right now they haven't found, like, clear-cut proof of so-called collusion, but this is close to collusion. I mean, anytime you have Donald Trump's own son meeting with the Russians to get dirt on Hillary Clinton, and then they tried to cover it up by saying that this meeting was about an adoption. I mean, it stinks. And then you have all these people that lied about having ties to Russians or meetings with Russians in the Trump administration. Many people. You had Michael Flynn. You had that Manafort guy. You had so many other people. Jeff Sessions even lied about meeting with Donald Trump. I mean, meeting with the Russians. He lied about that. You have people person after person lying about their contacts with these Russians. Something stinks. And I'm sure that if this investigation is conducted in a thorough way, they will uncover more evidence of collusion between the Russians and the Trump administration. I mean, and if you just reflect on how important this is, where you have the president of the United States collaborating with a foreign power to undermine American democracy. If that's not treason, I don't know what is. If that's not an impeachable offense, I don't know what is. Yeah, it's just something else, man. And I'm going to move on to the last thing dealing with Donald Trump. Well, there are two things that I need to deal with before I go on Donald Trump. A couple of things, actually, a couple of things. Another thing that has to be dealt with is Donald Trump's tweet to North Korea. And really, that should have been the first thing. I'm going to try to pull it up. I may share my screen with you all. Just bear with me a second so I can get to it. Actually, I'm not going to share it because I don't want to deal with copyright issues on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I'm just going to read from this. Basically, Donald Trump was challenging a leader by saying that the nuclear button, the Korean president said that, the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. So basically, the North Korean leader was threatening the United States, threatening to use nuclear weapons against the United States and its allies. And you would think that the president would not try to react in the same kind of way as this dictator over in North Korea. But again, the president is Donald Trump. So this is what he says. He says, will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it's much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works. So here you have Donald Trump. Instead of trying to de-escalate the situation, instead of trying to be diplomatic, this man throws fuel on a fire. His ego is such that he is more concerned about satisfying his own ego than he is about the safety of the American people. We're dealing with an unstable, irrational dictator in North Korea, and Donald Trump is trying to provoke this guy. I mean, Donald Trump is going to mess around, and this country is going to be involved in a nuclear conflict with North Korea or some other military conflict. And that's the last thing that we need. But this is what happened when you elect fools like Donald Trump. This is what happened when you elect people who have zero experience in politics. This man has never held any kind of public office. But the fools that voted for him and trusted him in this, to hold this powerful position. And now all of us are paying the price for it. All of us. Now, there are a couple of more points that I want to make before I close out on this live stream. The first point is this: Donald Trump is nothing but a liar. There's a Washington Post article, the link will be in the description box, about how the Washington Post has tracked the number of lies that this man has told. According to this article, Donald Trump is set to exceed 2,000 false or misleading claims, meaning that he's told like 2,000 something, almost 2,000 lies. According to this article, he's told these lies within 347 days, and the article breaks it down and says that this man tells like 5.6 lies a day. His lies range from, things dealing with the Affordable Care Act to him taking credit for all kinds of events or business decisions that occurred before he actually took office. His claims about the tax cut being the biggest tax cut in U.S. history and all that kind of stuff. This man is prone to exaggerations. This man is a pathological liar. This man is an absolute disgrace to the American people. And it's about time for him to I hope that he gets impeached. I mean, we are stuck with this man for the next few years, unfortunately. But I hope that something happens. I hope that he gets impeached. And I hope that people turn out for those midterm elections to ensure that he doesn't have much power in Congress. If we can vote out, more senators and more Congress people, we can make it difficult for this man to enforce his agenda. He's already stacking the courts with right-wing white men, so that he can carry out his white supremacist agenda. That's the only way you can describe his agenda. So yeah, I mean, it's a crazy situation, man. That you have this man that tells all these lies and this and that, lies that affect people's lives, lies that could lead us to war, lies that can lead to bad policy decisions and all that kind of stuff. And later on, I'm going to do another video about Umar Johnson, but I find it odd that our people are more concerned with Umar Johnson's lies and deception and all that kind of stuff than they are about the lies and deception of the President of the United States. A man who actually holds power, a man who is sitting in the most powerful position in the world, a man who can put judges in positions to make decisions that directly impact our lives, a man who is driving legislative policy in this country, a man who is in control of the Justice Department, a right-wing Justice Department that is rolling back our civil rights. People need to be concerned about what this man is doing. It's unfortunate that you have a lot of these people who claim to be concerned about Black people and what happens with Black people, but these people are more preoccupied with the Umar Johnson situation, and that's an important situation, and I'm going to talk about it too. But they're more preoccupied with that than they are with this president and his detrimental decisions that will adversely impact our Black community. Many of these talking heads, these people that many of us look up to, they told Black people not to vote. They actually had a "Don't Vote" campaign, and these same people again have the audacity to be complaining about what Donald Trump is doing. It's sickening. Now I'm going to move on to this last point dealing with Donald Trump, and then I'm going to move on to the next Google Hangout. But before I do that, I'll go through your comments and everything. The next issue is the situation in Iran. There have been protests in Iran. The protests have turned violent. Some people have been killed and all that kind of stuff. These people claim that they're protesting for democracy. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump is some champion of human rights. He's on Twitter talking about how he supports these protesters and all that kind of stuff. Talking about how he supports their human rights and democracy and the right to protest and all this and that. And as one of my friends on Facebook pointed out, how this same man, while he's championing people's right to protest in Iran, this man was opposing our rights to protest in America. This is the same man that when Black people wanted to protest at his rallies, this man called on his supporters, called on his goons, called on his thugs to attack Black protesters. Believe that he cares about human rights and the right to protest and free speech and all this other stuff. This man is a hypocrite. And there was an article in Politico, that pointed out how the United States is not trying to make human rights some big issue. They're not even concerned about human rights in a real way. And, I was watching Democracy Now! I saw Glenn Greenwald on there talking about this issue. And basically, the United States only cares about human rights when it involves one of their adversaries. When somebody is an ally of the United States, they couldn't care less about human rights. They couldn't care less. But when somebody is an enemy of the United States or a competitor or something like that, all of a sudden the United States has some kind of conscience. All of a sudden, then they care about human rights. They care about human rights in Iran, apparently, but they don't care about human rights in Saudi Arabia. A country that has violated all kinds of human rights. A country where women just recently got the right to vote and all that kind of stuff. a country where, they treat so-called immigrants as literal slaves, a country where, all kinds of violations of human and civil rights occur. He's not saying a word about their dictatorship over there. That man was in Saudi Arabia, bowing before the Saudi king. This man was in Saudi Arabia receiving gifts and all that kind of stuff from the kings and the royal family there. And yet he wants us to believe that he cares about human rights. You can't even protest in Saudi Arabia. You don't have human rights in Saudi Arabia. And this man in the U.S. empire has always supported dictators that are allies to the United States. This is nothing new. But when it comes to countries that have interests that are contrary to the United States interests or adversaries to the United States, all of a sudden the U.S. cares about human rights. They care about it when it's Zimbabwe or when it's Cuba or somewhere like that. But they don't care anything about civil rights and human rights when it's Saudi Arabia or one of these other Middle Eastern dictatorships that bow down before the United States, or dictatorships throughout Latin America and Africa that are aligned with the interests of the United States. I mean, a prime example would be Mobutu and Zaire at one point, back in the day. America has no problem supporting dictatorships. America has a history of overthrowing democratically elected governments. So whenever the United States is talking about how they're doing X, Y, and Z in the name of human rights, you better believe that it's an outright lie, that is not the real motivation behind the U.S. action. So yeah, I just had to get those things off of my chest, and I'm going to go through your comments, and then I'm going to start the next hangout. And I think that next one is going to be on that Michael Jordan issue and the boycott of the film Black Panther. So I'm going to go through your comments real quick before I bounce over to that one. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that Panther situation and boycott. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to address it here, but I'll address it on the next hangout in a few minutes. Newman said that Jeff Sessions needs to be stopped. Absolutely. He is a threat to civil rights. This man is against, this man has an abysmal record when it comes to voting rights, when it comes to affirmative action. You got Donald Trump talking about using the Justice Department to go after affirmative action at various universities. You have Jeff Sessions, for instance, saying that he doesn't believe that police consent decrees are an effective way to deal with police brutality and racial profiling. And you actually had Donald Trump again condoning police brutality and racial profiling. So yeah, Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions need to be stopped. And it's up to us to stop them. Shaq B said he loves when white supremacists fight each other. Divide and conquer like they did us. Yeah, I like seeing them fight too, man. I like seeing them destroy each other, man. Because Donald Trump, he's really upset with Steve Bannon. He's talking about, he sent a cease and desist letter to Steve Bannon to stop him from making statements, because apparently when Steve Bannon was fired, he signed some non-disclosure agreement. But yeah, it's great seeing these people fight, man. And I really hope that they lose during the midterms. And, for everybody listening, I hope that you are registered to vote and that you actually vote during the midterms. Too often we get caught up in the presidential election and we don't focus on our local elections and we don't focus on these midterm elections. And I see that Cassie C said that she doesn't trust Steve Bannon's tell all. It may be a bunch of disinformation because both Bannon and Trump subscribe to the same racial white supremacy ideology. That's a valid point. And I think this whole situation kind of takes away from Omarosa's thunder because she was talking about doing some tell-all book and all this and that. Yeah, I see that Shaq B asked, like, what can we basically do about this North Korea situation? He said that he would have to object to Donald Trump getting involved in a ground war in Korea. But then again, I want America to survive. What should we do? Yeah, I mean, I think that hopefully war is unlikely, but with this rhetoric, man, it's like you never know what could happen, man. You have Donald Trump threatening to use nuclear weapons, and it's like you got two crazy people in powerful positions. And that's a recipe for disaster, man. And, I really think that I'm not in favor of these countries developing nuclear weapons, because I think that the more nuclear weapons are developed, the more likely it will be that there will eventually be a nuclear war. With more countries getting the weapons, it just makes it more likely that something like that will happen. And it's just frightening that we have this idiot in the White House right now during these important times. Yeah, it's a shame, Elaine, that he doesn't have people around him that can refrain him, or stop him or discourage him from using Twitter in such a destructive kind of way. This man is more concerned about his ego than he is about the safety of the American people. Shout out to Andre Toppin. Shout out to Real Aaron Collins. Oh, I see. Praise the said it's time for my other live stream. Yeah, it is. I'm about to hop on that. So yeah, I'm gonna go to that other live stream. I'm about to start it in a few minutes. So I hope you all can join for that live stream. And before I go to that one, I'm just going to respond to one thing Nagon11 said: who can win a nuclear war? Insane. I mean, a nuclear war between the United States and North Korea. I mean, the United States has enough weapons to completely annihilate North Korea. I mean, North Korea could kill thousands of people with one nuclear weapon, but they will not win a nuclear war with the United States. But thousands of people, or even a million people, I mean, it will be hundreds of thousands of people that probably will die if they are able to strike the United States with a nuclear weapon. It'll be a disaster, man, a tragic loss of human life. But yeah, so I'm going to close this hangout out. I hope you all can join me for the one on Michael B. Jordan. So again, I want to thank you all for tuning in and thank you for your support. Peace and blessings.